All right, y'all. So what we're going to do now is we are going to run some various different statistics to be able to understand a little bit more about what's happening in your graphs. And also to change things like color, see what communities are related together, all of those sorts of things. So if you head over onto the right-hand side, yours might already be on filters, but what you can do is you can switch it over to statistics. So in here, there's a variety of different statistics that you can run to be able to see what's happening. So for example, average degree is looking at, okay, so on average, how many of these, how many different points are connected together from each of these individual ones, right? So this is essentially saying on average, how many tags are for every single document. So on average for this one, there's 25 tags. So if you ran this for different networks looking at different things, for example, so if we had done larceny and then done battery and assault separately, you can see whether or not there's a difference in how many different tags are being talked about at the same time. So on average, though, there's 25 different tags. Now, these tags, you would have to go back to the CWRGM to figure out, like, well, what tags and all that sort of thing. But oftentimes the tags are talking about people, places, different subjects that are being talked about, all of those sorts of things. And so on average, there's about 25 different individual things that are being talked about within any given letter in this particular set of letters that we have. So that's going to be the first one that we can do. You can also do things like, so I like doing modularity. So modularity is where we can get the number of different communities or number of different clusters of topics. Now, for this particular one, this is more or less what I would like to call topical clusters for this particular thing. Because it's what sorts of tags are commonly found together, right? So we can already see that there's some that are highly connected together. So like these ones over here, for example, highly interconnected. Or down here, we can see these ones are all highly interconnected with each other, and they don't necessarily really connect to the things up here. So the more separated out your communities are, the more that you'll be able to see those differences. And you'll be able to see, like, sometimes you'll find a cluster over here that's not connected to anything else on the inside. Now, that's not the case here because pretty much everything is connected back to the governor of Mississippi. And so that one is going to connect all of these different things together, but it's still a good way to see what kind of cluster of thing or what kind of communities or topics you have here, right? So if you're doing this for social networks, which is another place that you can run this for, there was a really good video by another person who looked at their friend groups on Facebook, and they could see like their high school people, their college people, and their work people all cluster out in different communities, right? So because this is looking at the same sort of thing, it's just looking at topics, this one's going to be saying, okay, what kind of topics are pulling out together? So we can run that. Now you can change the resolution and you can change like what number the classes start at, things like that. I, in this particular case, am just going to keep it as a default and see what happens. Okay, so what we have here is we have 7 different communities. So basically of these 200 different nodes and 25,000 different connections, really there's 7 clusters of subjects that fall together at the same time, is really what it's saying. And so that is what is happening. Now, down here, you can see how those are distributed in terms of the number of nodes that they're talking about. So we have this one here, which is going to be number 6. Number 6 is talking about 120 of our nodes, right? So that's saying that roughly half of these nodes are in one cluster. So this is a big cluster. This is a big community. This is a big topic. Our next one is this number 1, and that has about 55. We've got another one with 20, and then you have a whole bunch of little ones here that only have like 5. So these ones are probably going to be your outliers, but you really have 1, 2, 3 major ones, and then 4 down here that are these smaller communities, right? So this can tell you again, so we've got 1 dominating topic, 1 mid topic, 1 smallish topic, and then 4 that are very, very minor. Now, that doesn't really help us right now, but what we can do is we can actually see where those clusters are. So if we go back over here into our color, instead of going by ranking, what we can do is we can go by partition. And so now what you'll see is that modularity class is showing up here. You have to run the modularity statistic before you end up with modularity class here. So let's do that. So here, so remember what I said before, 50%? So this is this 50% one, then you have 125%, one at 8%, and then a couple at less than 5. Okay, so now what do we have here? So this is showing us where our clusters are. So we've got this green one here. We've got this purple one. This purple one is probably, yeah, this purple one here is this major one. We've got the green one. This is the next biggest one. Blue up at the top here. This one is showing us the next biggest one. And then we have these tiny clusters, 1, 2, 3, and where is that dark green one? I don't see, oh, there it is, 1, 2, 3, right there, dark green one right there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, those 4 clusters are tiny, tiny little ones. Now we can't really see what's happening with that, so we can go back and run something. So you found who is really, really good for running the different communities together. It'll cluster the communities as best it can. So let's do that one, and then I'm going to zoom in so that we can see that hopefully a little bit better. I'm going to run an expansion on this. Maybe I'll try a different one. Let's do this one. Nope. Let us change relative strength. Let's do this one. There we go. That's a little bit better. Okay. And then I'm going to run some expansion on this. There we go. Okay, so it's not... I still like the Force Atlas better for it. Usually, what I will say is YouFound Who is really, really good if you have very distinct classes. These ones are heavily interconnected, and so you can see it happening a little bit over here, right, where you see the blue ones are clustering out better. But again, it's a little bit problematic. So then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to see what these things actually are. So down at the bottom, there's this text one where you can then start to see what is happening. Now, what I will say is it's a little hard sometimes. So after you've labeled them, then you can also do label adjust, and it's going to readjust your clusters so that your labels are going to be a little bit nicer. Now, the other thing that you can do with this is you can also change what your text size and color is based on label size up at the top left-hand corner. So up at the top left-hand corner, we can also rank it. We can rank it by modularity class, or we can do it by frequency or degree. So I'm going to do it by frequency. I'm going to apply this, but then I'm going to reduce my max size down to 0.5 so that hopefully some of these ones are going to disappear a little bit, and we can start to actually see some of these different bits a little bit better. And I'm going to run a no overlap. And then I'm going to run another expansion on this. There we go. And then I'm going to make this text just a smidge bigger. I'm going to reduce the max size on this so that hopefully we can see. No, I don't want that one. Let's do 0.8. So some of this is a little bit of playing around and seeing what can be done. There we go. There we go. Now we've got some things. All right. So you should be able to see now that we have the assault and battery here, and it's very closely tied to burglaries, clemency, pardons, the circuit court, right? So it's all part of this one. Now, if you go up to this one is a little bit different. So this one is talking about the Confederate States Army. It does have larceny up here. It also has assault and battery. And then it has forfeitures, clergy, trials for assault and battery very specifically, and murder. So this one is a much smaller one that seems to be a little bit more on the side of things that is regarding probably military trials or things of that nature. If we were to go down to this bottom one here, this one is U.S. Navy, Colorado, steam paddlers. So this one is very specifically looking at probably Navy ones that are related to the crimes here. This one's, you've got appraisers, family, death threats, and flagellation. So this is a particular, this is that other side cluster. And then you also have this purple cluster up here. Now, this purple cluster is talking about much more generalized things, right? So you've got everything from fugitives from justice to indictments to horses to slavery to social control to trials, death threats, right? This one is a much more generalized one. You've got prisons and overcrowding, convict labor. So a little bit different on that one. And then you also should have, oh yes, this one, newspapers, endorsements, libel and slander in newspapers. So this one's talking about, likely these letters are talking about the coverage of some of these different trials, right? So, I mean, this one is sometimes a little bit more difficult to see once you have everything. But if you have very clear sorts of communities out of it, this lets you see what those communities are to be able to talk about those different topics. Now, once you've run some of these things, you can run any of these and take a look and see what's happening on them, and it'll put what those values are if they have it. So, number of betweenness, you're looking at how many steps are typically going through. Um, so you can take a look at any of these sorts of things. Once you have some of these things run, you should be able, so things like average path length, you should be able to go into things like edges and start to edit what you can see based on those. So for example, if I don't have, if I wanted to only take a look at some of the things that were heavily put together, then I can filter it based on this edge setting length, right? So, or edge weight. So basically this is saying it has to be connected to, in this case, at least 4 things. So any of my very, very small ones no longer should be showing up. And so you can do things like that. You can also do things by the topology. So how is it connected together? You can do things by by some sort of different operators. So you can say, oh, what's the intersection of this, this, and this, right? So looking at just subsections of it. So there's a variety of different things that you can do with that. So you can also change what the colors are of this one, which sometimes is important. You may not love this palette here. So what you can do is you can head over into palette and you can say, I want to choose one of these palettes, or I want to generate my own palette. So let's say you have some sort of thing that you wanted to take a look at and adjust. So maybe I want to do fancy dark background. So this is going to give me a whole bunch of dark options. I want to do indigo night. So maybe I just want to do it purple, right? So I can apply that one. And now we've got this very pink and purple one that's going on here, right? So you can play around with these options so that you can see how these things are functioning together. So with this one, I've changed it so that the color is based on weight, right? So only the ones that have the strongest weight are going to be on there. I can always switch it back. So now they're all gray. You do have to be careful a little bit of this because if you switch it back and forth, right, it's going to change what those colors are. And so now I don't have the colors, only my nodes are colored by that modularity class, which is a little bit hard to see, is what I will say. So I'm going to switch this back to this palette, and we're going to call her good for right now. So this is how you can do the various different communities of things, and I'll be back with how you can switch this into an interactive online graphic, and then also how you can print it or export it.